Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collarwood, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to conclude season 1 of Dark Shadows. So this is episode 35, uh, written by Art Wallace, narrated by Alexander Iles, directed by Leela Swift. And we open with a lovely shot of the house, and inside we see the what is it, the foyer. We see the stairs. Carolyn answers the phone when it rings, and it's Joe. She says, "Well, let me take it over the room." Carolyn forgets to hang up the phone. She goes into the drawing room. David's listening on the other. David, who came down the stairs, is listening on the other end. As uh, good old Joe Haskell tells Carolyn that Victoria Winters was in Burke Devlin's room having dinner with him. Um, Carolyn's not too happy. He's like, "Tell me you love me." She doesn't. And then there's like this hang up. She's not in the mood. David, he comes in. There's a great, you know, this is David Hennessy really at his best as an antagonist. And I really do mean that. I really enjoy David Collins being an antagonist in these early episodes because that's what he is. I mean, and this episode hits it home too. The other episodes, I'm not going to call them child's play. They weren't, especially when David tried to murder his dad. That wasn't child's play. Uh, um, but here, I really enjoy him pushing Carolyn's buttons. He's again, they're not going to necessarily. Though by the end of this, or sorry, by the end of this episode, Carolyn will apologize to Vicky. This, in many ways, is foreshadowing of things to come in season 2. Um, we in this episode you have Victoria and Burke coming to not necessarily an alliance, but somewhat of a friendship. Because an alliance would mean that Victoria would be spying on the Collins family. And that's just not the case. She's not there to spy on them on Burke's behalf. That honor is going to go to somebody else. We know who that someone else is. Oh my God. Miss Johnson. Um, we're also going to set up in season 2, obviously Bill Malloy is going to go on a fact-finding mission to to get the truth out of Sam Evans. Also, we do see Sam Evans in this episode when he doesn't go up to Burke's room right away, but he does come in, talk to Joe for a bit, then goes up to Burke's room and tells him, "I can't paint your portrait." Burke is saying, "Why not?" Really, ultimately, the only thing Sam doesn't get out of painting Burke's portrait, he just agrees to take more money. He just, Burke ups the ante with money, and Sam, it's just too good for him to refuse. Um, but I like what Burke does here because we're finally Burke's planting the seed at uh, David, uh, Sam Evans, David Ford's character. By the way, that we've had a recast. David Ford here is now playing Sam Evans. That I like how Burke Devlin is telling Sam Evans why Roger Collins tells you not to paint my portrait. Is there some sort of connection between you and Roger? He's hounding him a bit. So I like that because again, we're going to foreshadow of things to come later on. Not in this episode, but in season 2. We we also get a really good. I've said David Collins was the antagonist in this episode, and he is. We get a really good job by David Collins, David Hennessy, being in Carolyn's ear, being a little like an evil Jiminy Cricket. Oh yeah, she probably knew you like Burke Devlin. That's why she went up there and she called you are a 14 karat monster. I love that line. That's my favorite line in this episode. David, you are a 14 karat monster. Absolutely. And he is. I mean, look, the mark of any the only way you're going to get good protagonists is if you have equally good, or if not better, antagonists. And David is. I mean, for these episodes, he is an antagonist. And there's going to be things you see throughout the series where he's an antagonist, but he's possessed or something. David eventually does. It feels like we're not long for David being the antagonist, though, because when he locks Vicky in the room and she sees Bill Muller's ghost, I mean, that's it. David and her are on pretty good terms. So it just feels like you're not long for that. But though, before we go down that road, they do a great job of setting up the best thing they do really is set up a feud between Carolyn and Vicky in this episode. But they also set it up for future episodes to come, because as Carolyn warns her, I could do this all over again if you see Burke in his room. It's one thing to have David as an enemy. He wants to hurt you. He does not like you. Sometimes my mother doesn't like you. My Uncle Roger doesn't. It's a, her mother doesn't want her to find out certain things. Uncle Roger doesn't like her. Carolyn. So, but you do not need me as an enemy. And that's what it'll be if you see Burke and Vicky. Just like, look, because when she apologizes to Victoria about yelling at her, about being mad at her for having dinner with Burke Dallin, is Victoria Winter tries to explain to her, it was nothing, it was no big deal. In many ways, this is cause and effect of David being hurt. Now, to be clear, I can't, though I give David a huge assist in this, this is also, a lot of this is in Carolyn's own mind. Well, why does she get to go have dinner with him? Why can't I go have dinner with him? Yeah, and I really enjoy them setting things up for season 2. And I really love David Ford's portrayal of Sam Evans. Really, it was different. You see but what you do see is the poetry and range of David Ford, Sam Evans, when he's talking to Joe Haskell about getting Carolyn out of that house, and how he almost sounds like between a poet and a madman. And I really love that duality in the character, because we did get some of that with the previous Sam Evans, the guy who played the previous Sam Evans. I like what David Ford does here. He continues the continuity of the character without making it feel like as if the character's lost anything. The character hasn't. It's gained if anything, it gained a more, an actor who could be very versatile, an actor who knows how to sell not just himself but other people around him. Really great job with this casting decision, casting David Ford. I know he was Nancy Barrett's husband at the time. Good for him. Uh, but I really enjoyed, Sam Evans in this episode. Vicky and Carolyn's always fun, especially when you have Carolyn going off on somebody and she's trying to just demean him. It's very Collins of her. She sort of shows her Collins colors here. Her true Collins side, if you will, when it comes to losing her temper. Which I like. You really need to have that mix of good and bad and yin and yang, where there's an antagonist who's sort of making idle threats at the protagonist. And that's what's really going on here, too. I mean, I really, I enjoyed this episode. I tell you, a shot I really loved here, most of all, is the shot I loved most of all is how Leela Swift always manages to capture, and I know, look, Cy Thomasoff deserves a lot of credit for building these sets, but Leela Swift does a great job of making it feel as if Cy Thomasoff's sets are alive and well, and she does a great job with the camera. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from John Sedgwick, but both directors have different camera styles and stuff. To me, like Leela's great at shooting feet and these angles where the camera's facing somebody, like you're just outside the window, like you're looking in at Vicky or Carolyn. But what I like what John Sedgwick does is he's he does a really good job with his close-ups, his tracking shots. I love when he's tracking a character. The, again, Leela Swift does that too, but I'm giving some some credit to John Sedgwick, who I really enjoy as a director, and he's Dark Janice episodes as well. Um, it's just a fun episode to go watch, and I do think that Joe Joe feels sorry for Sam Evans, but Sam Evans feels twice as sorry for Joe Haskell because Sam Evans is realizing you ain't gonna get that girl, you ain't gonna get no Carol. I think it's fine to have a character as gullible, but Joe's drunken stupor in the episode, the episode that it happened in, I get him apologizing to Carolyn and to apologize to Liz. I get all that. That's fine. But I do wish, how do I put this? I wish Joe Haskell. I like Joe Haskell not taking back what he said about Burke, but I wouldn't have minded if they chose to draw a line in the sand with Joe here instead of waiting later to do that. Because I think, look, I wasn't alive in the 60s, but I'd like to think the audience in the 60s could tell, yeah, this whole Carolyn Joe romance, it ain't really going nowhere. And that kiss they did, it felt a little forced. At least I think it did. Oh my god. What an episode, guys. Alright, hope you guys, I think I covered everything. When Vicky comes back to Collinwood after arguing, her and Carolyn in an argument, she goes into the kitchen, makes herself some food. And again, like I said, Carolyn just apologizes to her and warns her, It's a fun episode. My Another one of my favorite lines is uh, when Joe Haskell asked Sam Evans, you curious your Hanover's yet coffee with your drink. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. You guys have a good night.